Hi everyone, welcome to day 14 of our 30 days Python series. Today we're going to learn OOP concept in Python, which is one of the most important theoretical concept. So it's going to be more of theory today. So let's start the video. And at the end of this video, we're going to do a small project where we will apply all of our learnings by creating an application called banking applications. Okay. Now first, let's see some of the theoretical concept. Now, if you see OOP, that full form is object oriented programming. Python itself is an object oriented programming. So everything that you do, you use different objects, right? So we will be creating our own objects, we will be creating our own classes. So we will see what is class, what is object. So let's see a quick definitions, which is called class. So class, it says a blueprint for creating object, defining their attributes and their method and their properties. So you can say class is a blueprint that holds everything, the structure of the object, right? So object could be again anything. We will see the example. So if you see the objects is an instances. Now one of the example of classes can be that employee class. So in employee class we can have a different employee information. So each employee is going to be one object or one instances. We can call it as instances or we can call it object. Now that can have that employee name, that employee age, that employee salary, that employee department, so many different things. So that's one of the classes examples. So we can have a different examples. Maybe classes could be maybe car. So the car can have a different car information. So each car is going to be one object or you can say one instances. Same ways we can give a banking information. So in the banking information, let's say we have a accounts. So account is the class. In account class, we have a different account informations like their balance, their account holder name, their other informations, maybe the DOB. So all those one account information is going to be one object. Let's start with creating a class first. Okay. So let's create a class and then understand this concept, right? So I'm just going to add a cell here. I'm going to say that class. So to create a class, it should start with something called class and then you can give the class name. So I'm just going to first give it name called maybe a person. So person, the first letter should be capital and just give semicolons and then I would just use def. Okay, you see this class, a blueprint of creating object, right? So we'll be creating the object and we will need to define their attributes, method, everything inside this class. The class name is person here. Okay, so here I just need to use a constructor which is called init constructor. So this init constructor is going to initialize as soon as I create different object. So I would just need to say underscore init, and once I define it, you see by default it has added all those things, so I don't have to define everything. So here what I need is something called self. So I would just need something called self and then whatever the attributes I want in this person class. Okay, so that's I need to put here. Let's say I want the person name, so I would say maybe the name. Okay, then I would need maybe the age and then I would need maybe the salary. Okay, or maybe something like maybe salary. Okay, so these are the three attributes I need in this person class. Okay, you see as soon as I am hovering here, it's showing as a class. Now this init is the instructor. Okay, so as soon as I create an object later on, it's going to basically add those records into name, age and salary. So we will see that. Now again I would need to use a colon here and then in each of this name I need to assign the object. So right now the object doesn't exist. Let's say I would be creating object here. Okay, but I need to assign these values into this of all of the names. So that means in each of the name, whenever I will be creating multiple object, I need to assign that name into this name, age into this age, salary into this age, and that's what I would do using this self. So here I just need to say self dot name and I'm just assigning the name. So whatever the name I would give in my future object, so that object name is going to put in this name. Okay, so that's fine. Then I can go ahead and say self dot age. So and I'm assigning the age that I would be adding in the future. Now I would just go ahead. Now this is kind of, you can say you are assigning this age is not this age that you will be putting in the object in the future. Okay, so then we would say self dot maybe salary equals the salary that you will be adding in the object, right? So here you may get a little confused because this self is mandatory. Why we are using the self? See, the self is a parameters. That means when we will be creating object, we will be giving different arguments. Those will be considered as a parameters. So each argument will go different places, right? Based on this self. Okay, so that is fine. Now we want to maybe return something here. So we can go ahead and say that return and a print message. So print, and let's say we want to show the employee informations. So using f string, so I would just go ahead and say f string, and I would just go ahead and say employee name, and here I'm just going to use this, which is called this name. Okay, so for that I would just use this self dot name, and I'm going to use the age also, so that's going to be self dot age. I would say age, self dot age, and I would need maybe the salary, so I would just use self dot salary and salary. Okay, so this the print message is going to display. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and create an object. First of all, we need to create an object. So once you create object, then only we can check these values. Okay, so I would just go ahead and say that object is going to be maybe E1, that's my first person or first employee. So here I would just need to write that class name, which is called person. Okay, and this text basically this three things, so which is called name, age, and salary. So I would just go ahead and it has to be outside these functions. So I would just go ahead and say that this class, which is person, text, name, age, and salary. So name will go here in this name, age will go here, salary will go here. So I would just go ahead and say that name something called maybe Sam, and then I would just enter maybe the age, let's say 25, then I would just enter salary is like 25,000. Okay, so that's my first employee. I can add more, so let's add more to employee details. Okay, so here I'm just going to say Rahul, and I'm going to say basically Priya. Okay, so let's say 21, 30, 45,000, let's say 31,000. Okay, 31,000. Now these are different objects that I am adding, right? So I would just go ahead and kind of write maybe object, or you can say instances. Okay, so that's fine. Now what I want, right, I would want to print one of the object. Maybe I want to print first object a salary. Okay, so for that you would just need to say print. Okay, and you can go ahead and say e1 dot, all you need is the salary. Okay, so if you just execute it, you will be getting the salary. Now as I have used the print statement here, okay, that's the reason it is returning kind of this, which is called employee name Sam, age this, and the age, it's returning this age, which is 25, then salary is returning. So it's returning all the records you can see from here. So I would not need this now. Okay, so let's execute it. See, I'm getting this salary, which is 31,000. Okay, now if I need for the first person, I need maybe the age, right? So I would just go ahead and say age, that's returning 31. So let's say I need maybe the second person, maybe the salary. Okay, so I would just need to type e2, then I would just type what I need is the salary. Okay, so e2 of salary, that's going to be okay. I have not mentioned as a e2 and e3, so e2 of salary. So you can see here I'm getting the salary, which is 45,000. Okay, so this is the object. Okay, so this is one object, or we can say instance, and this is the class that we have defined. Okay, the important thing is that you need to know that this is how you create class. Now what we can do using creating class, we will see a real applications, and we will be using this class. Now you can take this topic really deep, but again, the main thing, you need to understand how to create class. Okay, and how to kind of define this class, which I have done here. That's what you need to know. And how to add different objects. You can see here I have added different objects. Now let's understand this with another example. Okay, so I'm just going to create one more class called maybe car. Okay, so let's go ahead and define one more class called car, and this car will have different car informations. Okay, so car class, then you need to say diff and then init. Okay, because this init is the constructor. So what you want is here is that you would just need to define. So we would need to define this self, then you need to define whatever you want. Let's say we want the car, maybe the brand car, maybe the brand. Okay, then you need maybe the model. Okay, then you need the colors, and then you need maybe so brand, model, color, right? These are the things we need. Let's say we only need this 4 things. Okay, now these 3 are attributes. Okay, now you can see this model, brand, name is not defined. So what I need to do is that I need to define them using this self. So you need to say self dot brand, self dot brand, and here you just need to insert this brand. Okay, so this self is going to get the from the object. When you will try to create object, from that object is going to get the brand and it's going to put it here. Then we would say again self, this self is mandatory, so we would say model equals model. Okay, then we would say self dot color equals color. Okay, so that is fine. Now what I need is that very simple. I would just need to go ahead and create my this object, right, in the first instances. So I would say object here. Let's create an object. So the object that I would be creating maybe C1, which is my first car, and that's part of this car class, so the class should be capital. So I would say that car class of, and I would give all the elements. You see, I need to give the brand, I need to give models, and I need to give colors. So here brand, I would just need to go ahead and say keep as a Ford, and then it is asking for the model. So model, let's say I would just keep something called eco sport. Okay, then it's asking for colors, so let's give something called blue. Okay, so these are the things it is asking about the car. We can also add one more something called make, and here I would need to just define self dot make equals make. Okay, I would just need to give something called make as well. Okay, not make, just the make of maybe 2022. Okay, perfect. So we can add more, so I can just go ahead and say one more, that's car 2, and let's say BMW, and maybe let's say M, something like it, and let's say maybe dark black. Okay, anything, right? So let's say 2023. So that's a fine, that's going to be maybe X1. Okay, so that's fine. Now I want to kind of see one of this informations, right? So I would just go ahead and say that C1 of what I need. So I need make model brand, so I would just need to see the brand. So if I just execute it, you see I'm getting the brand. If I need maybe C1 of maybe just call make, you can see the make. Okay, if you need everything, so you can just print a message called print, and you would just need to define whatever you need, right? So I would just need C1 dot maybe make brand, I need C1 of maybe colors. Okay, so you can see I'm getting all those informations. Okay, so this is my one of the object. Okay, now let's see one of the real applications, like what exactly we can do using this class, right? So here we have a mini problem. So we need to create a banking applications. We will be creating a class which is called accounts. Okay, so that will have two properties. One is called account number, one is called balance. Okay, now what we will do is that we will create different methods. So one is going to be debit methods, one is going to be credit methods, one is going to be get bank balance method. Now as soon as we create an object, okay, first we will be creating an object. That means we will be creating one entity that's going to be maybe account number, and we will assign some maybe balance. Okay, then we would try to add a transaction which is debit transactions, so it's automatically going to debit the account and it's going to show the balance. Then we will try to add a credit transaction that's going to add the amount and show the balance. Then every time it's going to get this balance. Okay, all those things we will be doing. So let's go ahead and create a Python application. So I would just go ahead and put it here, call app.py. Here we would just go ahead and say banking applications. Okay, so let's start with the class. So we would just say class, and the class name is going to be account. Okay, now we would just need to use some def and init. So init. Okay, so let's delete all those things. So here the self is mandatory, and we would only need we have only two properties. One is called account number, and one is called the informations like the balance. Okay, so I would just use maybe something called balance, and initially I'm storing 0 as a balance. Okay, that's fine. I would just need to define it, and here I would just go ahead and define this account and balance. Okay, so I would just use self dot account number equals this account number. Okay, Then I would also need to define this self dot balance, and I would just need to say that this balance. Okay, so that's fine. I need three methods. Okay, so methods are different operation that you want to perform. So you would just go and say method one, that's going to be debit. Okay, you want to have a debit method. Now if you want to print a balance, we can just go ahead and write it print, and we can just go ahead and use a f string. So we would just go ahead and say current balance is, and we can print the balance. Okay, so to print the balance you can simply use this, which is called balance, that's inside this. Okay, now let's go ahead and create an object to first test if in case it is working or not. So let's go ahead and say that account one, and for account one you just need to use, it has to be outside this def functions. So account one, and here I'm going to say that account of what I want, I need to give account number and balance, right? So let's go ahead and say that account number I'm going to give call 12101, and the balance I would just give something called 15,000. Okay, so this is my first object. Okay, so this is my first object. I'm giving this account number and I'm giving this balance. Okay, so now let's go ahead and print the balance. Okay, let's go ahead and print say account one of what I need is balance. Okay, okay, you can see that by default I'm getting a message called current balance, which is 15,000, and this is also showing this balance. Okay, because I have defined a print statement here. Okay, that's fine. So this current balance is automatically going to get the balance. Okay, now this is our first object, right? This is the first instance or first object, you can say. So this is object, right? The first object. Now let's go ahead and add some method here, right? So to add a method, let's go ahead and add a method here. So let's first of all delete this. Now let's add our first method, which is going to be a debit method, to debit the money from this balance, right? As soon as there is a debit, so we want to debit the money from this account, right? Balance. So we would just go ahead and say that method one, that's going to be our debit method. So we need to use this def, and then we would just need to use any name that's going to be debit. I'm going to use the name called debit, and here I'm just going to write something called very simple, which is going to be self. I need to write self, and then I need to write amount. Now this amount is going to be entered, right, when it is going to be when we would want to debit something, right? So let's go ahead and say that what we want this amount to do. So this amount we want to do something like very simple, which is going to be this self dot balance, and we would just minus equals this amount. Okay, so this debit method is going to simply minus the amount that is entered from this bank balance, and then we can simply go print a message here called print, and we can just go ahead and say that a formatting, and we can say your account is being debited by whatever the amount it is being debited by. So we can show that that's going to be this amount. Okay, and we want to show the total balance, we would do that later on. So that's the first method. Let's create one more method, that's for the credit method. Okay, credit method, so that's going to add the balance. Okay, so here we would just say def, and the method name is going to be credit, and we would just use a self, which is a mandatory because the self is going to take the amount. Okay, as soon as you call this, right? So self amount, and we would just say what you want to do is that we want to do the same thing here, but we want to here plus the amount, and then store it back to the self dot balance, which is our this main balance. Okay, so that's fine. Now let's go ahead and let's print this message like your account is credit this time instead of debit. So your account is being credited by this amount. Okay, so that's fine. Now let's write one more function that's simply going to show the balance. Okay, so it says def get balance. Now what it does is basically simply shows the balance. So here we just need to define the self, is mandatory. Then what we want to show is that print a message using f formatting, and you can say your account balance is whatever the account balance we want to show. Okay, so that's going to be the balance of the account, right? So this balance, so we were using this self dot balance. Okay, So that is fine. Now let's go ahead and test it, right? So we have one account which is called account number 101. Let's create one more account with maybe account number 2. Let's create one more account, that's account number 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and say account number 2, account number 3. Okay, so that's going to be 20102 so initial balance for this account is only 5,000. For this account is like 11,000. Okay, so let's go ahead and first of all print the bank balance. Now what I want, as soon as this transaction happen, I want to print this account balance. So I would just kind of reuse this statement here. So it also shows the bank balance after every transactions like debit or credit. Okay, the final bank balance. Okay, so let's go ahead and first see bank balance of maybe account number 1. Right now let's go ahead and see the bank balance of one of the account. Okay, so in this account I have assigned some dummy balance, and for their account number, you can say account number and balance. So we would want to see the balance, right? So for that, what I would do is that I would go ahead and kind of simply write a print statement, print. And if in case I want to see the get balance, I would just need to execute this method which is called get balance. Okay, if I want to do a credit, so I would execute this credit method. If I do a debit, I would execute this debit method. So I would go ahead and say that for account number 1, account 1, all I need is that, you see, as soon as I execute enter dot, it giving me all the options. So I would just need the get balance. Okay, and I would just need to use execute it. You see your account balance is 15,000. we are getting something called none, so for that we can see from where it is coming, but we are getting the balance, okay, at the moment. So that is fine. Let's go ahead and kind of do some transactions now. Okay, so we would do some transactions now. Let's say that for this account number 1, at the moment we have 15,000. Okay, we want to do a transactions, like we want to do a debit transactions. Okay, so debit of, let's say 1,000, debit of 10,000. Okay, so we would just go ahead and say that account number 1, and what I want is debit. So it takes amount, you can see it is asking for the amount. Okay, so amount what I want is going to be something like maybe 10,000. Okay, so this is done. Then what I want, and then I would want to kind of print this. Okay, even if I execute it, it's going to give me that message. You can see your account is being debited, which is 10,000. Your account balance is only 5,000. Okay, so that is fine. Now we would just go ahead and kind of add a credit transaction. So account 1 dot credit. So let's say I want to credit again by only 2,000. Okay, let's run it. So I would just uncomment it, I would just comment it out. Let's run this. Okay, you see your account balance is 2,000. Your account is credited by 2,000 and the balance is 17,000, because this earlier balance is considering, so this is considering this balance is a 15,000. So if you want first debit then edit, then you would just have a different balance. You can see now the balance is 7,000 because we debited by 5,000, then we have credited by 2,000. So you can see it here. Okay, so we have debited by 5,000, then we have credited by 2,000. Okay, so these are the different method that you can see, which all depends on this class which is called account, right? And this is the different instances or different object. Okay, now we can again credit back something. Maybe we can check for the account number 2. Okay, let's say for account number 2 we want to kind of check the balance. Okay, so we can just say account number 2, and even we can directly use the balance function as well. So if you just use the balance functions, that's, you just need to print it. Okay, so print inside this balance functions, you don't need to use this parenthesis. So you can see that balance is showing as a 5,000. Okay, that's for the account number 2 because it has a balance of 5,000. But if you want to execute using this method, so you can see this method simply shows a nice message and just kind of shows this balance. Okay, which is again the same thing, that's the balance. Okay, all right, now you've seen how to create a class and how to define different methods in a class, and how to add different instances, and how to do different things. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video till the end. If you have enjoyed this video, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a good day. Take care. Bye bye.